Hi, this is Mike Green, Dodgy on the LightWave forums, and I'm just going to show you how to use a little plugin called HairBlade, which is a really useful plugin for extruding polygons along curves, which remain editable. So, we need a curve to start with, so let's just draw a quick one. There we go. We have our curve. Set it on the ground plane, there we go. Now, HairBlade uses a couple of panels. You've got a polygon blade type, so you can use polygon or line, so it allows you to extrude a line along the curve, like you would, for example, if you were going to make a Sasquatch hair wig. It allows you to choose the divide level of how the shape is going to be extruded along that line. It allows you to choose a freeze rate. Now, the freeze rate is if you want to convert it to actual polygons, because until you do, it remains editable and it's still a thing that you can play around with. So we'll leave that at 100%. You've got a shape type, so this is where you choose your polygon shape that you're going to extrude along the curve. You can have a procedural, which is just kind of a curved, slight curved thing. An 8-sided circle, well, these ones are all user defined, so you can control exactly what shapes you want to extrude along the spline. So if we select the procedural for now, you can see you've got width of the procedural and the height. If you choose one of the others, those are shaded out. Again, the procedural, you've got a width divide, so that determines how curved, how soft that curve is that it extrudes along the spline. You can put a cap on the end and the start. You can choose to have like a subpatch weight value along the spline. You can choose a UV type. Now, UVs are only applied to the spline when it's frozen due to a limitation in the SDK. So polygon handlers, which is what this is. So you can choose that, but it won't make any difference if you're just going to leave it in its editable state. You'll have to freeze it to get the UVs, and those UVs will be along the object. UV map name, obviously choose your UV map name, and Sasquatch root, choose the surface for your Sasquatch root, because you can have it create a point at the beginning of the spline, at the beginning of the extruded line if you're using the line mode. Okay, so if we just click on OK, you can see this is what it's come up with. So because I had the width curve set to 6, you can see it's a fairly curvy, fairly smooth curve along there. But this one has only the subdivision set to 2, so it's a fairly chunky extrusion. Now, you can, sorry about that, you can go to HairBlade again, and it will bring up the same requester, but this time with tick boxes. So you can choose what you want to change of the particular blade that you have selected. So I'm going to turn it into a 24-sided circle, so I'll just turn that on. And then I'm just going to up the divide rate. Now you can drag that all the way up to 32. Let's just set it to, say, 10 for now. And I'll just turn that on, and I'll leave the others off. So now you can see we've got our 24-sided circle extruded along the spline. And it represents it as a kind of slashed line in the wireframe view. But you can edit that spline however you want. You can pull it around, and it still remains fully editable. Okay. If you go to Blade Edit, that gives you an interactive way of controlling how that spline is deformed along it, that curve, that shape. So it gives you this little crosshair, and you can click and drag on it. It's a bit laggy because of my video capture software, and that scales the side up and down. If you control left mouse drag, it'll do it symmetrically, repeatedly. There we go. So it's a little bit. It's fine if you're not using screen capture software, but my screen capture software is making it kind of lag a bit. And if you right click, you can rotate that particular handle. It's all going a bit crazy. And if you shift drag, or if you drag it, you can move the point around like that. And if you right click, it scales the whole thing along that axis. So if you right click and drag on that handle, it'll scale that all the way along the object. So that's an easy way to do that. So I'm just going to rotate that a bit back. There we go. So that's your handle. You have a numeric panel, which is quite involved. You can choose, if you've got multiple curves, you can choose which curve to edit using this curve number. So this is curve 0. This is the divide level, so obviously you can slide that up and down, and it adjusts how smooth the division is on the object. You can only drag it up to 10, but if you type in another number, you can see it subdivides it to whatever level you want to use. So that's 64. Let's go back down to 10. Okay, so it's nice and smooth. You've got a freeze rate. Now that controls how smooth it is when it's frozen into polygons. So if, for example, you want to see it nice and smooth here, but you're going to use it as a subdivision object when you freeze it into polygons, you might want to drop that down to, say, 1/10 of that, like 1 block, or you might want to say, I don't know, 50% or 25%, so it only ever does 4 segments, that kind of thing. You've got these 4 tabs, which are Shape, Global, Point, and VMap. Now, Shape allows you to choose between the different types and which shape it is. So you can see here, you've got flat, 24-sided circle, 8-sided circle small. I've got various sizes on my little circles. I've got a grass blade, so it kind of does it in a V shape for me. You can obviously turn on and off this cap, so at the end you might not want a cap for a grass blade because it'll be a bit chunky. Like you can see the line across there. And you can obviously set the Sasquatch route. I'm just going to set back to 8-sided circle again. For global, you can change the global width. You can change the global height. I'm just going to reset that back to 100%. You can rotate the whole thing, so you can see, if I just zoom out a bit, and I'll just switch to that 3D view. You can see it rotates the whole thing around its center axis. Or, alternatively, you can twist it, which doesn't make a big difference for a circle, for example. So if I set it to 0, but if I change the shape to my 3-sided object, which is a bit big, let's just shrink that down a bit. So I'll go 20, say, 20. See, I've got a 3-sided circle now, extruded along the object. If I twist that, you can see I've got some nice helixes going around there. It's quite funky. And that all remains fully editable. If we go to the point one, you can see I've got a point control, so I can choose which point of the object I want to play with. So if I want to pull that bit around, again this is all lagging because of the screen capture software. So there you can see it can be fully editable. You might decide that it's not subdivided enough if it's, and there we go, it's a bit more smooth. So that's your point that you can choose which one to control. You can choose a custom divide, so if it's set to 0 then it will use the global divide value, but if you bump that above 0, say to 1, you get a 1 segment from one point to the next. 2 points, 3 points, 4 points, 5 points, and so on, up to 10. Again, that seems to be capped at 10 for some reason. Maybe if I do 64, oops, 140. No, it seems to be capped for the custom divide to 10. So, not best, but you can just slip it back to 0 for the custom divide. Just set that back down to 10 again, so it's a bit more manageable. Now, for each point, you can set a morph shape. Now, if set the shape back to 8-sided circle, oops, and I'll make that 100%. So you can see that. If I go to the morph shape, now this can morph between any points which have any shapes which have the same number of points in it. So, for example, you can see that some of these shapes are disabled. That's because they don't have the same number of points as the 8-sided circle. Obviously, the 8-sided circle has the same number of sides as 8-sided 1 centimeter, etc. And if I switch to one of the others, it doesn't seem to morph between them. I guess it must use a normalized version, the size of the. So switch the twist back off again. Uses a normalized version of the size of the shape of the object. So, yeah, you can choose to switch between various morphs along the. Oh, that's why. So if I select the shape, say the 8-sided circle 1 centimeter, it has a blending value. That's why I didn't show it up. There you go. That's why it's working. So if you set the blending to 100%, obviously it will blend that to 100%. If you select the next point and go to 0.1 of a centimeter, you can see as I blend it down and up, it's scaling up and down. I'm going to pop back up, to one of the other sizes, and you can see a tiny value. And obviously a negative blending will boost that right out. Okay. So that's what that does, the morph shape. So you can blend between different shapes along the length of the curve. So you could have one shape at one end and one shape at the other end. You've obviously got numeric access to the scale values, which are controlled by this handle. So you can set those as you want. You can rotate an individual point like that. So I'm spinning it around. And you can also offset the shape. So you can pull it around relative to the actual curve itself. So you might want to push your twisted wires out of something, for example. So yeah, so that's quite a lot of control you have over each point that you can fiddle with, like that. You've got your VMAP, so subpatch weight and UV type A. So you've got none, so it won't create any UVs, or type A, where it basically extrudes the line along the UV map. And you can check the UV map name. You got your HairBlade manager. Now, this is where you can control what shapes you want to add to the HairBlade, like list, as it were. You can capture a shape. Now, the shapes have to be sort of looking along the z-axis. So this is an 8-sided circle. And you can capture the shape from let's say a different layer or whatever. It's always a good idea to keep your shape that you've extruded in a separate layer in your object, just in case you clean it out of the HairBlade manager. You might want to get it back somehow. You can write back a shape to the layer. So if I just go there and go HairBlade, Blade Manager. Go right back a shape. Oh, there it is. So it's at the appears at the origin, obviously. So you can get your shape back if you've got it still in the Blade Manager. You can see all the different sort of shapes that you want. So you've got a 24-sided circle and whatnot. You can replace one shape with another. So if you've got a shape in the layer currently, you can replace, say, one shape with that new shape, or you can delete the shape from this list. You can export all shapes or import all shapes as well. So if you click that, it'll give you a request so you can actually save those to a config file. That way you won't lose it. You could save all your blades for a particular project, for example. When you're in a particular shape that you've got selected, you can see it's numeric. It enumerates the points. So 0.0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, etc. You can push those points around, so the point order can be shuffled. So if you want to push the 0 point to the bottom, you can do that using these buttons. And that will also be part of the morph, I imagine. So it's if you have one circle with a 0 up here, but another one with 0 down here, then obviously it'll try and morph from that 0 to that 0 and spin the whole thing around. You can also flip the order, so instead of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and flip it back. And if you've got, say, 3 polygons that we have here, you can choose your polygon using this slider. So you can see each one is being lit a bit. So that's the first one, that's the second one, and that's the third one. And obviously you can change the values again. You can shift them around or flip the polygon itself. So that's basically what the HairBlade Manager does, and that's what gets listed in the Blade Edit panel. Okay. You can freeze the blade. So you can see now I've got an actual polygon version of the object. That doesn't replace the original Blade Edit version. This is the Blade version. This is the polygon version. And you can see why you might need the percentage freeze control, because we're getting quite a lot of polygons along this blade now. So if you're going to convert it to a subpatch like that, you're going to get a lot of polygons in this object. But there you go. So that's basically your blade. If I just save it as a test object and send that to layout. Oops. Just going to grab the first layer. You can see it actually creates it as an object in there. So on the right hand side we've got the subdivision object. On the left hand side we've got the blade object. I'm just going to turn on VPR. You can see that. It has all the standard, because it's polygons when it's in layout, it has a standard value like controls for surfacing. So obviously you can change the color. You can turn on smoothing, so it's nice and smooth there. Specularity or whatever. I'll just give it something to reflect. Stick up reflection. But of course, you can use, say, procedurals on this thing. So you can see procedural works fine. But if you want to use an image map, you can use the projections, the standard projections. So there's UV checker. You can see it's zoom in a bit. There we go. You can see it's mapped it along the thing quite easily, like that. But if you want a UV map, you'd have to have it in a frozen thing. Now I didn't put a UV map on the other one, so it's not going to show up. But if we just go back to the object, I'm just going to delete that. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to create a UV map. So new texture. Okay, so we've got a UV map. Go to HairBlade. Let's go curve to blade. We'll just turn on type A, and we use texture as the name. Go OK. Now if we just freeze that again, I'll just move this out of here. Save. I'm just going to switch to the UV view. You can see the texture one just has kind of a UV across the curve, which is a messed up thing. But it's created a new texture called texture 0, which extrudes the object along that, and it uses the scale of the object to determine how wide it is along the UV view. Okay, so if we switch back to this and choose texture, there we go. So you've got texture 0, and that has created a UV map along your spline object. So there you go. I mean, I use this for kind of wires and all those kind of things. So it's just really useful, because then you can go back and edit the thing again, and if you need to, freeze it again or whatever. Use it in ropes, that kind of stuff, and you can just go back and edit the width of the object or whatever, whenever you need to. And I hope this has been helpful for you, and maybe you'll use the plugin. So there you go. Bye.